inversion of the failure of temporal ambitions. Bourdieu. I'd like to think of narrative as a folly, a classically styled folly, whose conspicuous inutility might decorate and articulate the idea of the present, much in the way that the library, at some trouble to justify profligacy, is a folly. Debbie. Proem. Between antiquity and us floats love in the library. I'll import back into antiquity this lexical span, this unfleshed sex, this loosening tear at the mid-afternoon institution. But even a tear refracts the cursive grammar of gender. I'll call it a lens, a wet rhetoric whose long focus gathers the lilies, the roses, the simple daisies from the pleasant grandeur of that Roman walk to offer them to you. Argument. With what suave domesticity Virgil strolls among the deep shelves of the paternal library. The metric pulse of the catalogue or calendar charts his walk. To narrate an origin as lapidary, as irrevocable, is only to have chosen with a styled authority from the ranked aisles of thought. For, if Virgil has taught me anything, it's that authority is just this, a rhetoric or style which has asserted the phantom permanency of a context. Shall we consider that it is here, in this crumbling folly of taxonomy, that rhetoric flicks her blithe kilt, tempts one to slip between the shelves, find a nuanced nook where an exchange can take place? All porcelain shepherdesses lead to Rome. They're figurines of rhetoric. If I met one in the library, why would I not trust the cadenced drape of her skirt? She will guide me. Virgil recedes into the distance. Debbie tugs at books as loose dresses, her cold porcelain clarity so sotto voce it pours like rope. Halfway down the aisle, we drift through a languorous gap in the borrowed alphabet into the surprisingly fearless compatibility of the late classical afternoon. Ships named for women move towards description. They enter narrative as I have entered books. Whose city is this? Over wine-dark lawns, swallows perform auguries, and further back, economy sculpts the harbor. Islands leak like ink into pockets. Dead good queens flounce with civic tenderness. Their unspooled diction drags and flirts. Slick lyric blocks history. Closure ornaments this plight. Narrative is pushing failure. I feel my gender is out there, floating wildly in that harbor. But thought greets an ornament. Failure or closure structures heroes. From the outside, from a position of threat, from rank forests and islands, sirens or queens could disperse his fated trajectory. A guy tests his story against songs and cushions and feasts so that he may continue to produce beginnings. Each beginning is a cleavage. The bower is a pyre. To be left behind is annihilation, so it seems. But thought greets an ornament. I dreamt a sonnet mapped my lavish sleep. I read the curbs of epic lust's derive, and there saw myself. Precocious closure sculpts, thin difference, thin frock. I greet an ornament. Hello, shepherdess. Lend me a bit of that stuff, that fancy stuff. Dear Virgil, this is how it is. Glass houses envelop narrative. Its alienance in conversation. One person leans back on purple cushions. The other, having traveled for years towards this meeting, brocades a cunning failure. He is the honored guest. His lounging hostess has provided foaming gold cups, lyres, fretted roof of gold, torches, jewels, 50 serving maids, 100 young pages, rare napkins, this embroidered couch. He may speak with fey authority. I'm observing this scene from outside, the players backlit by a wealth of lamps. I'm out of my neighborhood. The air here is perfumed, the gardens ancient and luxuriant. I am compelled to witness this fresh redundancy, as if I already knew the swank and honeyed story. Peroration. Books and girls are real lacuna, yeah. All that we have forgotten about narrative steals back into narrative and watches us with shining eyes. Narrative deletes its center. A hero's real value lies precisely in the failure of his eschatological ambitions. The transparency of the classical is a gorgeously useless ruse. Somewhere among those flowering transparencies, a shepherdess is hidden. Perhaps she's shacking up with queens. Perhaps she's cataloging the rhetorics of plush ambivalence. Gentle colleagues, imagine yourselves as Debbie. Then collate these riffs. Dignity's provenance is lax. Proxy twins the bundled ghosts of a fop's apocalypse. Debbie learns the word loveliest, feeds the future to your capsized mouths. There is no outside except the one that, faunal, we make by consignment. I'm just, the rest of the work I'm going to read is a series of fragments of poems from the body of the epic. And I won't stop to describe or explain. I'm just going to go right through. And it's following a fairly formal, generic procedure that I've decided to respect, sort of. So you might notice that it's beginning with an invocation. Hello, nurses of words flattened as if pronominal and parthenogenic at the ordinary place of desire. Striate light articulates the spurious, clacking of thought, private justice cuts lozenges into the blue your sown lips, blent with the obfuscating grief of done, grasses bent into themselves far phalanx of geese, of sorrow, of forgetfulness. Hello, nurses of clinical distance. I speak to judge crimes of filiation. As hard sky spent cancelled horizon, my own mouth barking, perhaps I am unmentionable, ticking against the dark adjacency of prose lovely home, of gods and punctuation, I say this, against the long and burning hills in the slaty cold of debt. Dark Artemis's division unpracticed splits into the staccato glamour of February, trickles lurex through the arbitrary and distant apple tree. A girl's hard russet lace, it is the dreamt world, it is the buckled marsh hawked rhythmic. I see girls who, as if armed and in formation, one figure seated and one other standing, or two seated, love approaching, flaunt the pliant display of tenderness. Others folding clothes, one slightly bent to place her folded garment, her companion turning around ribboned thigh to watch her bend, compel you to enter those rooms. Another will want to dream just of those animals associated with deities or queens, yet still display the abstinent charm of insouciant Venus. Venus after Venus stepped out. Some are called sweetheart and polish the sexual lens as if it were a blurred age. One's exact rage ranks an acrid point. I witness the sumptuous hygiene of the soul, crimson and various my throat. Nouns and nerves decay, sluices imply. Honey or grease of light wrecks to frilled rust. Equivocal as certain clocks, trees die. Hello, nurses, more pertinent than words. With irony, antiquity salts thee. I'm the one who praised you with antediluvian flutes, as the golden celibates turned in their small houses by the corn where lovers walked, trumpeting copulate love. When this was utopia, language felt personal, like property. Now modesty resists trusting something. And this is the light Debbie steps into. Her toffied flanks roll with greatness and substance in their sockets, and her hearty hands bear the bruised sea. Mighty, amazing beauty moves her, and all the streaming purple girls are her marvelous squadron. Their bare throats spill analysis. For rhetors bathed in scent of steel and split hide, their senses found nations. If luck's nameless girls love me, I'm happy. My city minting history and so on. I, Debbie, with spurred ankles and purple knee skin, stand free to forget species anxiety. What happened to the century? The ship's planks sing. Alive keel twins, hair of Katrina, ears of Katrina, Dan's fine nape, Christine's corded hips, Susan's sea scarf, moving with me as philosophers into felicity, and in the midst of elation, the thrones of Aaron's vowels. A liberal dose, or I have not hauled this waxen heart from the gnarled bole of a great tree, nor fleshed it with tenderness and new sports. Swimmers, your sweet ribs beat so fast, I must dare all. I will do lovely things in taxis and count myself among the lucky. I will comb the pale hair of boys with muttering hands, wanting only the satiate fact of that silk. I will discuss perfidy with scholars as if spurning kisses. I will sip the marble marrow of empire. I want sugar, but I shall never wear shame. And if you call that sophistry, then what is love? How to judge. To those whose city is taken, give glass pockets. To those whose quiver gapes, give queens, and pace their limbs with flutes, ropes, cups of soft juice. To those whose threshold vacillates, give that bruise the dust astonished. To falling heroes, give raucous sibyls polished knees. To those who sip nectar, give teeth. And if they still sip nectar, give green chips of wood. To swimmers give clocks, or rank their hearts among new satellites as you would Garbo's skint lip. To scholars give dovecots, to virgins targets. Justice has nothing on them. Virgil, sweetheart, even pretty fops need justice. If they think not, let creditors flank them and watch their vigor quickly flag. To exiled brides give tiny knives and beads of mercury, then rob them of prudence, for prudence is defunct. To those who fist clouds give powder, and if their sullen wallets flap, give nothing at all. Still, I have not addressed lambent fops swathed in honey, the stuttering moon, martyrs, Spartans, sirens, mumblers, pawns, ventriloquists, or your sweet ego. The beloved ego in the plummy light is you. When I see you in that light, I desire all that has been kept from me, etc., for you. Since your rough shirt reminds me of the first grass pressing my hips and seed heads fringing the sky, and the sky swaying lightly to your scraped breath, since I hear panicked my sister calling, since the gold leaves have all been lost, and you are at least several and variegated, I toss this slight thread back. The beloved ego on cold marble blurs inscription. Dear Virgil, I think your clocked ardor is stuck in the blue vein on my wrist. It stops all judgment. Here are ancient songs of certain authorship. The one being kissed makes tantrums plausible, but a subtraction of reference means you won't learn her name. Call it failure, some like that hell. Swipe fresh gals from the midst of gender, tiny bombs, flesh lilies, decimals. Friend Venus, toss your liquid glove to virgins. Such cold qualms test their vertigo. Name by increment those fluted ribs. Fold rhythm back from florid arms. She sits hybrid at the Dairy Queen among ripe prayers and lures, fanning Psyche's louche stuff, adores calendars. Hey Psyche, that's some kit. Schools quit for its languor. Gutters tumble. The green-rimmed spring imbibes us. I'm minus merit under the flux of this girl's pure bridge. Why nurse regret? The stirred earth kneels for her fat moans. My darling's vigilance is trepidation's teacher. I skim the numbered stars and open all the subtle books. I'll not surpass her lux. Each breath's a tantrum, buttering the night's loose window. In her dream of justice, like a crease soaked in the purple spume of boys' tears, or a black stem under a hoof, undulant Diane drinks her straight. My shut lips refuse music. Will greenness never come to me? Each tarnished day unties another name of certainty. Please, muse of my heart, unloose this looped throat. Stroke tenderly that coded silence. Fawns and narcissists hate eternity. Why should I not also? Ambitious, decorative hate eternity who wears the toxic hair of the season, embracing each liberal melancholic at the cool shore as catalog less beloved than economic. Or practice doubt, a dainty thorn, if those were not my kisses. Against frugal will, O stiffened spine of love, sure, I would softly scaffold your bright and dirty sea, should those birds almost personal stop. Against the fast spring, what new honesty would be possible? Care bent as that fine wing, in complicity as seasonal, poets wanting nothing, someone more than to be fabled, beautiful artificial hearts to cry, I am half-lidded. And I'm going to finish with a toast. And it's really addressed to the poets Erin Moray and Lissa Woolsack. Suburban love is fenced in acid. Civilian love is flush. All living animals need touch, except for those that don't, I guess. The resemblance of pleasure brings a dividend of doubt. But forensics could not quantify the basted evening's furrow, when cities with their citizens are molten slings for thought, and pleasure is the whelp I tend, a supernal chiaroscuro. Though complicity thy name is woven of unctuous polyphony, a civilianesque proclivity clasps around my throat, this vulture cloak, a streamlined joke, or Greek machine for living. So, from surfeit of sprung circumstance, I toast, O disquisite book of marginalia, each feral daughter knows.
Lisa, that was beautiful. I've been writing a lot of fragments lately, and I think they're all related, but I'm not sure how yet. So I'm just going to do them. With the writers Nancy Shaw and Monica Gagnon, and Lisa too, we've formed an Institute of the Imagination. And this is the Institute's motto is ditch, dine, drink, dance. So this is it. Ditch. Brooked delight, a sulky aside, at once familiar and heave. Let me ask none. Leave. Muster up our aching, tenuous, weighted gliss, tender, lippy, nothing would induce me. Dine. Today puts on a done thing, lover beacon, travel, sojourn, snatch, plot, have, forget this woman's name. Drink. Whose will's indomitable, yet such cordial, saucy, milk-fed, civil sediment, indeed, so tender a hub, so ever seethed, our sturdy braes, all technics kin, a swung vitiate. Dance. Funking coil, avid, fatal, a little light, lithe, impalpable, inevitable, overtrod, fresh farce fervor should seriously dandle, an outstretched impulse, hips, coagulation, hats, prank, heady, fleet, a limb's turn, might. And for a number of years I've been trying to write the way music does, if that makes any sense. And I can't figure it out, but these are some attempts. All of these pieces are written for the musician Francois Wool. 3/4. Which generous slack, agile, empathic, roils askew, enfolds yet now threnody shoulders precarious, butte, loam, cirques crack and gentles ever swell, this tide's transport tunes mischief whatsoever. Split. Animate rim, enamored scuff, an edgy ripening, whose fair stirring splint some scumble, yeah, migrant coursed, ropey, bent. Unsettling, as though dual twists could root or flee, besieged as ever. Headlong yield, obdurate and entwined akin, and further off, saddled. And these bits are really bitty. This piece is written, it's called Solo Requiem, and it's written for the painter Robin Costain, who hung himself a year ago. Hood lanky, color toothy, never, never, solo only, slender sever, warm this number, one's dear relapse ever. Decked for the Kootenai School of Writing's 10th anniversary. Whether taken or obstinate, a thatched enjoined deek or our earlier tithe, take 1 in 10, this tilling's testy barter tucked, an irritable culpel's dime, will covert and straddle sure webbing struts, especially. Gap. Silken or untenable, as though reddened through a slip's waver, a billied, gifty scat, our clattering's peg, 1, wary, opulent. This is a slightly longer piece written with Nancy Shaw, who lives in Montreal. It's called Ender, from a piece that she wrote called Gender City. 4 hooks and a reach and riotous addiction. Mere peels tore, an implored disclaimer. I'd sturdy a beaming speck in praise of her dressing. All this rise is comfort kissing, presumptions slack. My bones a squandered pesk, such edgy noblesse. For this sack of nuance I'm taciturned, a tender bomb juts. Alacrity's all up or often ill-defined, outgrown meddler for you often. The dearth of hands and all shucked dulse, fan the way you might. Imagine what records these are, whose integrity limps less. Easy, I found my rapacious heart sullied, altered, shafted, that wry quiver. How much? This is not a study. I'm no rehearsal. If flexy cunning nimbles them measured balks, or lands papered in aversion's bloom, tepid clasp is yours, lustrous, hide-bound, an instant oligarch, hit, held, licked with nodal reams, will never lose. You're a printed parse, all sly, destiny tangled, entrapped, discriminate. Whether dispatched or copious in a country's thrall, have sucked dispersal, but it was alibied. New come cumbersome stance, beset, aligned, embellished, futile, tithed, yet worse than that, we must refrain. We'll ably latch to some known key, or else unbecome, ascending the rote we've not declared, nor will elude. I'm broiled trouble, my carnage overloan, repealed, annulled, a witness, all pinioned this importunate nip-off, clamped, and declared solitude lasts, gloved, unruly, a furrowed griller's glaring. Who speaks of furrows? Who wilts anonymous liberties? Who hollers suspect appetite, beguiles the typically rendered unrecorded, flaunts their own respite, yearns verbatim? And I, for a long time, was working on an opera that was set in the 14th century, and I abandoned it last week. So I was hoping to have all new work to read, but I threw it all away. So I guess I'll read some of this. This is from the abandoned opera, which was called Watt. And there was a character in the opera called Elle, who was everybody's love object. And these are her songs. They're called Circular Body. And her motto is, I, venturess, was rendered symmetrically independent. These are songs about her body. Did I say that? I can't remember. 1. Wash. Throne of your one hard, can them veery, raised, smaller, prone, ply, this very bad, then when overhead and utmost, iced. Yet I'll only vent pain your antiform only, breasts will sometimes, all right, sometimes. 2. Wrist. From arcane before and after, anatomical by usual, and may inhibit as syndrome, after, well, as much as. Sectioned in longed doses, as bulked can acidify, often my recurrent. Will I then place mine broken along tangible cuffs? 3. Wavy. Digestive, favorable, lubricant, unlikely, with a plan. 4. Wake. May solve, may pressure, some apt pirate, as if you 2 or 3 times can predispose, or often disappeared, how unchaste, which gives especially tender or sterile violet, stubborn treatments, kins plain. And the Institute I spoke of earlier has a songbook. The Institute songbook. And these are some of those. These are Dame Ninny's ditties to be sung by her gorgeous minions. 1. Imagine a grained vex, an unauthorized scrapey irk roughing up our sanded cusp, a nettled ply, a rustle's wing, a kissing, rasping kiss, an irksome delight. 2. Or a peppered task, limbed, flecked, coriandered, a smoking, simmering impertinence. What's said? Her marrows honey-wafered, she abets us, were strewn. 3. Swamped, clung, seized, were sick, firsted by her saffron, all oiled for her, terrible, her wrists cleave. Make no word of this, she's a meddler, a collation, a buttered ember. 4. Would thrum this pooling, late knife it, rim and spook with it, so wasted, so unadorned, this arable nectar, this fleeced turn. 5. Your scathing clack, tremulous and clingy, little blue citadine, roar hither, hi-ho, vene, pillage, much less mockery, your plush-covered remorse. 6. Her bones scoff, swipe over our supine indiscretions, rifts tangible, swarms. Unstinting, we're her revel's tremor, a stale vent. And this is Dame Ninny's elegant refusal. Luck's infatuated with me, pools curvy here, as spacious as your debtor's heart, as moral and inky as our tender. I'm infinitely dashing, and spurn your beamish curve, would sooner stroke an absent lick than sleek your scrap. The rest of the songbook is torch songs written by Nancy and Monica. I'm not going to read them because I didn't write them. And I think I'm going to stop there. Is that enough? Thanks a lot, Jenny.